Warning: the following video contains strong language and suggested themes. If you don't want to listen to a small horse swear his head off about things that make him angry, we suggest avoiding this video. Otherwise, please feel free to stay, listen, and watch. As always, the reviews and comments are done in parody, and for the sake of comedic input. We hope you enjoy the show. Fuck time travel. No, seriously. Just fuck it. It always causes problems, and it always means that somebody has to clean up the mess. I will digress that it is good for entertainment in science fiction. But oh my dear Celestia, there are so many fanboys who keep disagreeing about string theory and multiverse theory. And then there's some shows which just ignore it completely. I'm looking at you, Doctor Who. That wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey nonsense doesn't work with either theory. You can't claim that there's a fixed point in time and a fixed timeline and then ignore the dimensional travel that you've done. That kind of crap only supports the multiverse theory, and makes the idea of fixed points complete nonsense unless you're just trying to preserve your own timeline to mess around with. But then you have the episodes that show the entire multiverse completely unraveling because of some fixed point nonsense. It's that kind of unsanctimonious bullshit nonsense that makes my head hurt. And some of you are probably looking at this video and asking, what is string theory? And what is multiverse theory? Well, I'm probably going to get yelled at by every fanboy for saying this and oversimplifying it, but here goes. The idea is, string theory says that there is one timeline. That's it. But when somebody is to go back in time to another point, they completely halt the timeline and start an alternate one that moves forward. If you want a good example of this theory, this would be Back to the Future. Multiverse theory, however, expands upon this. Rather than having one line, there's a line for every single possible choice. This, however, doesn't mean that there is no consequence to time travel in this theory. Going back still causes changes in the timeline and creates new branches. Because going back in time in itself is another decision, and it creates a new set of branching effects. This theory also supports the idea of multi-dimensional travel. You want a good example of that? Look at Rick and Morty. Rick may not know how to do time travel, but he does know how to move forward through dimensions. He even uses the idea of branching possibilities from dimensions to find another one for him and Morty to live in after he screws up his own. So you might ask, why am I so riled up? This isn't supposed to be a talk about Doctor Who, is it? Well, not exactly. You see, I like Doctor Who for certain episodes, but some of them make my head hurt. No. I'm actually talking about ponies today. You see, ignoring the fact that Princess Twilight Sparkle has used time travel twice, she's used it for both theories. Now, I can forgive the show because later on it ends up using multiverse theory. The Season 5 finale actually goes over it quite nicely, showing different choices and outcomes leading to the main six not meeting and different results happening each time. But the very first episode MLP ever did used string theory. The idea that you can't always change your fate and you shouldn't worry about it. And the idea that Princess Twilight Sparkle went into the future to tell herself not to worry about it so that she'd end up worrying about it to get there so that she would tell herself not to worry about it so that she would get there herself to not... Fuck. This is making my head hurt. You see, this time-looping, self-replicating effect that's being used, string theory has to have it in order to maintain its own story. You can't change the future. Oh my god, the repercussions could be horrible. There has to be dire consequences to you not making the right choice. This really doesn't make sense. Think about it. I mean, in some important decisions, yeah, maybe it could be something that could change things drastically. Those are those fixed points in time that people talk about. But the problem is if you choose to do something differently only in the slightest, there's still the chance that you can change the future and then make it go the way you want it to begin with. Remember those branching paths that I was talking about? Well, regardless of how you make a choice, some of them intersect and end up going in the same direction. This is the wibbly-wobbly time effect that you may get from Doctor Who. The way that you get multiple episodes that go through multiple timelines that change ever so slightly to create new paths that lead to the same end destination. So if you were to think about Princess Twilight Sparkle making a bunch of decisions that end up leading her back into the same place where she was before, this only works if the timeline is left uninterrupted. To do anything other than that in string theory is to cause a paradox. And the idea of a paradox is to do something that's so incredibly chaotic that it just breaks the universe. And some of you I can already hear saying, MLP can get away with it because it has magic. Yeah, when it comes to that, fuck magic. For all intensive purposes involving time travel, magic is just using the energies of the universe in order to create the effect. It doesn't explain away things, nor does it actually fix the problem. Hell, magic can still make things worse. Think about it. If you were to go back 1,000 years to stop some major war from happening, you'd destroy everything that took place if you were following string theory. There's even the factor that maybe, for some reason, that war may have caused you to be born. So, if you stopped the war that caused you to be born, and you were the one to go back in time to stop that war, then that doesn't happen, and you create a paradox. Both timelines cease to exist. Now try telling that to Princess Purple Smart. Hey Princess Twilight, you subscribe to string theory? Hey look, you played with the timelines. Guess what? Not only did you manage to prevent those futures from happening, but you also prevented others from being born or existing at all. Great job! Achievement unlocked. You've created reverse genocide. However, if you were to do multiverse theory, you would still exist as you were. Why? Because despite being distanced from your original timeline by however long it may have been, your original timeline still exists and you're somehow connected to it. Now let's introduce magic to that factor. You introduce an outside energy of some sort to create the effect of time travel. Those energies that are in your universe and in your timeline are tethered to you and whatever actions you use. For all intensive purposes, they are the reason you are in the past. By some accounts and theories, whatever destruction you cause in that universe, and causing it to unravel, could follow you back to the original timeline, just by grabbing hold of that trail. Or, let's say that you brought back some unintended time traveler with you. Whatever you did made their dimension cease to exist, except for the fact that they still exist. Why? Because either they're tethered to the energies of your universe now, or they're a ticking time bomb waiting to go off. Oh, my favorite, trying to stop someone from dying in the timelines. This one tends to cause the most paradoxes. There's only ever been one good example of how to actually get past this problem. And any of you who've played Chrono Trigger actually know how that works. Not telling you how, go play Chrono Trigger. It's actually a fun game. At any rate, if you want to do time travel correctly in your story, follow the theories. Or at the very least, make up one that makes sense. You want a good example of that? Look at some of the generations of Star Trek. Just for the love of God, don't subscribe to the theory of hot tub time machine. This has been Frigid wins. And again, fuck time travel.